بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا مرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه تسليما كثيرا اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد فاتم لما أغلق وخاتم لما سبق الناس الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم. طيب, inshallah, we're going to continue with our seminar series on Islamic reform and renewal in the West, where we are examining the text Bayan Wujub al Hijra al Ibad by the Shehu Usman Dan Fodio. And so, alhamdulillah, we've reached chapter 9, and which is on the Arkan al-Wilaya, on the principles of the Islamic Wilaya. And just to summarize, we've been talking about the formation of our communities, in the grassroots communities in America or in the West, wherever they may be, and the need for leadership, the need for organization, the need for guidance, and the need for protection. And we were basing the impetus of organizing ourselves on the historical legacies of 4 personalities that we examined in the earlier classes, which were the Shehu Usman Dan Fodio, Al-Hajj Umar al-Futi, Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba Mbaki, and Sheikh Ibrahim Ninyas. May Allah be pleased with all of them. And so we spoke a bit about the organization, the legacies that they had, why they were important, and what it is that we should be taking from them and emulating and imitating and some of the things, or many of the things that they did. And then the conversation kind of transferred itself over to the political organization of a community or a state. And in our case, it would be a community. And the idea of hijrah, of moving, a migration, in our situation being from city to city, or state to state, on one side of the city to another side of the city, one community to another, what have you. It doesn't necessarily mean from one country to another country. So we can have to put things in context for ourselves and the need for it today, because we find ourselves in a situation with a lot of the current political atmosphere and social atmosphere that's going on. We find our communities in disarray, lacking leadership, lacking guidance, people asking questions. People really don't know what to identify with. And so we're looking at this Islamically. We have to look at first our obligations to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's first and that's foremost. Looking at what it is that we were supposed to be doing, what is obligatory upon us as a people, as an ummah, as Muslims, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is to establish Islamic Wilaya, Islamic polity, where the name of Allah is supreme and His deen is supreme. And we're seeking independence and independent sovereignty. And the question would be, can this be done in America? And the answer would be yes. And there have been many attempts to do this, we know of, in the past. But now we have a position in 2020 where we can look at the past and look at the mistakes of past organizations and past groups. We can take the good things that they did and take from them and borrow and use some of the great and the good that they did and that was beneficial for the people, and use that today. But we can also, but the most importantly, we can learn from their mistakes. And that we have so much in need of our communities that we have to organize under a leadership. And that is not my opinion per se. That is legislated by the Sharia. It is an obligation by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He puts upon the people wherever they may be, wherever you are, wherever the Muslims are, you have to have leadership. You have to have an emir. You have to have an imam. If a group of Muslims go out for a journey, for an expedition, a group of 10 Muslims, for example, then they have to designate at the outset of the trip who is the emir, who's the imam. There should be leadership. And the allegiance is not necessarily to the personality or to that particular person, but it's to the office of the imam. It's to the position of the imam. And then you have the emir, and you have the wazir, and you have different, the qadi, you have different positions that support the imam. And so for our situation as grassroots communities, African American and Latino communities in America, that we find ourselves spread across the country, that in independent communities can function and still remain to function as independent communities, but at the same time, we will be connected one to another under a leadership that will oversee the protection of the Muslim communities overall. And this is what we're discussing on the principles, on the conditions of the imam, and the principles of the emirate. And now, today, as we talk about now, the arkan, or the principles of the Islamic Wilaya. And so he says that at the outset, to understand some of the terminology about wilaya. And wilaya, he says, and the footnote, that it's a general term for any legal competence, from the root wilaya, meaning to have power over something. And so in constitutional law, wilaya means the sovereign power. The caliph, or the caliph, as some would pronounce it, okay, is used in this particular chapter, or power delegated by the sovereign. The office of a governor or wali, okay, which is synonymous to diwan. All right. So this is what we're talking about, and oftentimes we find the terms wilaya and mulk, which is a kingship or sovereignty, used synonymously. But the Shehu Usman Dan Fodio uses them synonymously. But his brother, the Alim of Sokoto, Abdullahi Dan Fodio, he differed with the Shehu on these terminology, and that the mulk should not be used. And he illustrates his point in some books that he's written, such as Diya Ula al-Amri wal Mujahideen, the book that I personally have a copy of. And also another book that I have, Diya al-Sultan, that Abdullahi Dan Fodio also illustrates his point about that. But we can get into that a bit later as we cover some of these books that, as we continue into the works of Abdullahi Dan Fodio much later after we are done examining the Bayan. So to get into it, the Sheikh says, فأقول بالله توفيق أعلم أن أركان ولايتي أربعة هي أركان الملك ولا يصلح الملك إلا بها كما أن السرير لا يصلح إلا بأربع قوائم. That he says that, and I say that, and he says, I say, and success is from Allah. Know that the supports of wilaya are the same upon which sovereignty, mulk, is based, and without which it cannot stand, just as a bed cannot stand without 4 legs or 4 supports. All right. So he says that the first support, he says, al-awwalu min arkanihi waziru sidq ala wilayati yanihi idha nama. So he says that the first support is an upright wazir, a truthful wazir. So this is another position that we have to fulfill. The wazir, someone who's upright over the wilaya, who wakens the ruler if he sleeps. All right? Meaning he awakens the ruler if he sleeps, meaning what? He gives him insight or gives him sight if he cannot see. And he reminds him if he forgets. Nah. SubhanAllah. He said, وَيُبْشِرُهُ إِذَا عَمَى وَيُذْكِرُهُ إِذَا النَّسَى وَأَعْظَمُ مَصَائِبِ عَلَى الْوِلَاةِ وَرُؤْيَةِ أَنْ يُحَرَّمُ صَوَالِهِ الْوُزَرَاءِ وَالْأَعْوَانِ. Naam. So he says that the greatest catastrophe which can befall rulers and subjects is to be deprived of good wazirs and helpers. So this is where the imams of our communities will come together, and as we said in our last couple of classes, to identify the imam, identify the amir, and to identify here we have the wazirs, identify people who are qualified for these positions, elect them, okay, appoint them. And he said that one of the requirements of a wazir is that he should be truly benevolent and kind-hearted towards the people. So we definitely have people in our communities who are learned, who are imams right now, who are helpers of the masajid, helpers of the communities that our people can easily identify. So there is no excuse and there's no reason why we would not be able to fulfill these positions. And again, as to keep in mind, this is we're working toward tajdeed. We're working toward a renewal of our communities on the basis of the Sharia. On the basis of the Sharia, we're seeking our own to function as a Muslim community, independent and sovereign, at the same time functioning within the overall United States, or maybe you're in the United Kingdom or what have you, in Mexico or in Canada, but we have to function as Muslims wherever we are, and again, it's our right. So it's not something that people should be afraid of, or should be turned away from, or should shy away from. It's something that we as Muslims should go on the offensive and assert our rights, our constitutional rights. We should have lobbyist organizations in the government. Our imams, our amirs, our wazirs would be in direct relationship, in contact with politicians, governors, mayors, heads of state. So we would be able to protect the Muslim communities, make sure that all of our rights are provided for, given under the law, the overall constitutional law, that our rights are protected, because we would be a minority. We are a minority within a minority. It's the legal obligation upon our leaders, our imams, to make sure that the rights of the Muslims are protected. So he continues into the second support. The Shehu continues into the second support of sovereignty is the Qadi. Okay, and he says that the Qadi, نعم الثاني من الأركان الملك قاضي ولا تأخذه في الله لومة لائم. And again, here the mulk, he uses sovereignty. We indicated at the beginning that the Shehu uses sovereignty and wilaya synonymously. So he said that the second support of the sovereignty is a Qadi who is not restrained by anyone's blame or censure from upholding Allah's law, as it is stated in the Qawaneen, which is the Qawaneen Fiqhiyya of Imam Juzay. He says, it's stated in the Qawaneen, the office of Qadi embraces 10 things. All right? 10 things. So we'd have to identify a qadi. And the qadi, of course, would be extremely learned in the sciences of the Sharia, fiqh, qawaid fiqhiyya, usul al-fiqh, maqasid al-Sharia, and of course other things as well. So he said that the qadi embraces 10 things. The first thing that the qadi embraces is to settle cases between litigants, either by mutual reconciliation or by compelling them to accept a mandatory judgment. Right? So this is one of the responsibilities of the qadi. The second is to prevent oppressors from taking things by force, okay, or from violating the law, and so on, and to support the oppressed and help everyone to get his due. All right, so the qadi here will be seeing, people will see him in the court. He's the judge. The third of the 10 that he would uphold is to uphold the statutory penalties and carry out the commands of Allah. The fourth is to hear cases of homicide and injury. So these are, if we police our own communities, we have our own courts. This is one of the institutions that has to be implemented and erected, is that we'd have our own courts in our communities that will be ruled by Sharia law. We have a qadi, and when rules are broken, laws are broken within our community, then they will be ruled by Sharia law. And it's possible for us to get Islamic arbitration within the government. Even today, the Jews have Jewish arbitration in the government, where a Jew commits a crime, then he can be judged by Jewish law. And so the Muslims, we can do the same. And there's been a lot of literature written about this as well. It's a constitutional right. So we have to be aggressive and see to it that we're able to have these institutions implemented, and we should be ruled by Sharia law. What is the purpose of us studying fiqh and studying Sharia sciences if we can't implement them? Okay, Sharia sciences go way beyond just the ahkam of salah, or the ahkam of Sawm or Hajj or Zakat. Okay, we get into the mu'amalat, into the adat, then they go into family law and crimes and punishments and things like that. And so we can implement these in our communities. Some things we may not be able to do because we're living, overall we will not be able to carry out because living in an non-Muslim land. However, we do what we can do, okay? And we don't do what we can't do. Allah would not take into account for it, but what we can do, we do. And there should be no excuse in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for us not doing it. And it's the responsibility of our leadership to see to it that it's done. So we can have courts where we have the qadi, where he can carry out these obligations and responsibilities. So the fourth is to hear cases of homicide and injury. The fifth is to safeguard the properties of orphans and the insane, okay, the majnoon, and to appoint legal guardians over them. All right, so you have to have legal guardians for those who are orphans. All right, and we know the importance of orphans. Our Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam was an orphan. Musa alayhi salam was an orphan. So we understand that the care and the great care that Allah, and the great care and attention Allah gives to the orphans in the Quran. And in the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala wasallam, we find a myriad of hadith that pertain to the importance that the orphans and the care and attention that they should be given. So, as well as those who are intellectually incompetent, the majnoon, the insane, they all have a right to have legal guardians. And the sixth, which we looked over the property, the estates, the ahbas, right? And the seventh is to the execution of wills. All of these will take place in the court and the court system that we would establish. The eighth responsibility of the Qadi is to contract marriages for women. Okay, if they have no guardian, okay, many women, they come into Islam, they don't have a guardian, there's no wali. All right, and if there's no male relatives that are qualified to be the wali, then if you study fiqh, you study this bab, then you find that the Qadi will be the one that can be in a position to be the wali, and he can contract marriages for women if they have no qualified wali, or if the guardian has stood in the way of their marrying, okay, then the Qadi can step in and he can serve and carry out the contract for the women to get married. It's very important. And the ninth responsibility of the Qadi would be to care for the public utilities, such as the roads of the Muslims and the like, right? To make sure that the communities are taken care of, that the roads are paved well. You have these responsibilities where we can be in contact with public transportation, public municipalities, administrations that oversee these affairs and these utilities. Then it will be the responsibility of the leadership and these positions to make sure that the Muslim communities, that these things are taken care of. And the last and final responsibility of the Qadi is to command the good and forbid the evil, both by word and deed. And the Sheikh says here that he said that there can be several Qadis. There can be several Qadis. As in the Mukhtasar Khalil, he states that it is permissible to appoint more than one Qadi, either to supervise all matters, or for a particular place, or for a particular branch of jurisdiction. So this is important. This is extremely important that we find people who are qualified for these positions. And how, and so we can start to see the formation of our communities and how they would run in a much more organized fashion, and that the Muslims, the problems that we have in our communities today, a lot of these issues will be resolved quickly just by our leadership taking the mantle and organizing and galvanizing the proper people who fit the condition to fulfill these positions of leadership that we're covering. And so the third pillar of sovereignty of the Wilaya or Mulk is a just chief of police, right? And we know that you can't have a separate police force within the confines of the United States, but we should be able, and we could be able, to organize our own force where we can police ourselves, even before the state police come into place. We have a lot of people who, in our communities, Muslims who have, who are police, one, who have military backgrounds, who have backgrounds in security and things like this, where we can oversee the affairs of our people. All right, because we know our rights, we know the things that we're sensitive to. And so you have someone in leadership of that force. He will be known as Sahib al-Shurta, the chief of the police. Okay, and this person would ensure that the weak obtain justice from the powerful. So we don't have oppression in our communities. And of course, and this would be overseeing the rights of women. We have a lot of women in our communities who, unfortunately, and admittedly so, are being oppressed. And those things definitely will not be tolerated. And so he says the fourth pillar, Okay, the fourth pillar, as you said, there were 4 pillars of mulk, sovereignty. The fourth pillar is a commissioner of kharaj, who collects the tax but does not oppress the subjects. Okay, and this is something probably that we would not be able to do. Okay, because we would not be in the position of authority over the entire land. So this person, the kharaj, he would collect the taxes from the dhimmis and the jizya and things like that, but would not necessarily be applicable. So we'd have to adjust and make things relevant. We're not saying that we are able to apply everything in the Sharia. Of course not. There are rules, there are conditions, and when these conditions cannot be met, then those things are not an obligation. But those things that we can do, we should do, and we have to do. And so as in the Diya al-Khulafa enumerates the Diya al-Khulafa of the Abdullah Dan Fodio, he illuminates these 4 supports in this order. So Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu said that no governor can succeed without possessing 4 qualities: power to collect money from lawful sources and to use it in the right places, strictness without harshness, and leniency without weakness. If one of these qualities is lacking, things will not go right for him. So this is extremely, extremely important. SubhanAllah, this book gives us a blueprint and a rubric from which to work from to organize our communities. And while everybody right now is talking about things that from race issues to issues of the larger society, police brutality, and all these are important issues. But one of the most pressing issues is that we discuss the organization of our communities. And much of the things that we're discussing today, the issues, the problems, they will be taken care of if we have the proper leadership, the proper people in these positions to, as servants of the people, servants of the community, to oversee that these issues are taken care of. And so, inshallah, it is our hope that at Faida Institute, that we can serve as a platform by which this type of organization can come together into fruition, and that we be able to witness an Islamic Wilaya within the confines of the United States, both in legal terms, where we will be able to function in peace. And as the Shehu Usman Dan Fodio said, as a reminder that there are 4 stages to tajdeed. And the first stage of tajdeed is education, it's knowledge. And this is the impetus behind Faida Institute, is that we can't do anything without knowledge. Our communities, our people have been miseducated in many ways. Our African American Muslims, Latino Muslims, for a long period of time, we've been miseducated about many things. And the first thing that we have to do is to secure our knowledge about our deen, the proper knowledge about our deen in the proper manner. So this was the impetus behind establishing Faida Institute. And whatever we do, it has to be surrounded around knowledge. So we have to erect institutions of Islamic learning. And so it is our hope, bi'ithnillahi ta'ala, that Faida Institute, inshallah, is one of those instrumental institutions, inshallah, that is seeking to be a catalyst, seeking to be a hub for the organization and the development of our Islamic Muslim communities at the grassroots level, whereby we can be independent and sovereign and govern ourselves and make the laws of Allah something by which we live by, and make the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala supreme. So inshallah, this is something that the discussion needs to be had, and hope that there are people who are listening and are thinking and responding to some of these ideas that the Shehu puts forth. There will be a lot more that we'll cover, inshallah, in this series from the books of Abdullah Dan Fodio, and possibly from Muhammad Bello, inshallah, the son of the Shehu. So, inshallah, with that, we welcome any comments, any suggestions, anything, any concerns that anyone has. You're welcome to comment, welcome to address the issue, inshallah. Allahumma salli wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi tasliman kathira. Subhana rabbika rabbi izzatal amma yasifun. Wa salamun ala mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.